Hello everybody, this is 2018 Jeep and it's a 3.6 liter. Any Jeep with this motor has probably the same problem where the lifter and rockers make noise. So I'm going to replace the all bank 1, bank 2 lifters and rockers. The customer opted in for an aftermarket setup. This is the job where it requires removing a lot of stuff around the engine to get to actual valve covers. And sometimes you can unplug and remove the fuse box completely, or sometimes you just unbolt everything and then move it aside. Just put a fender cover, even though it's not painted, you don't want it scratching. So, and then lean it over. Intake manifold will be removed completely. Top part, that's just a cover. So you're gonna remove that. And then get down to a bunch of lines and fittings. Mostly are plastic, so be very careful. At this point, if you have an issue with your filter or the cooler, or if it was never replaced and it's original and this is your car, I would recommend you replace that because it's known to leak the O-rings underneath the cooler. If you're doing it for the customer, recommend it, and it's their choice to say yes or no. So I'm going to get started. This is going to be a work. If you're doing it yourself, have some patience. Get a bunch of Ziplocs and name all the bolts you remove on the Ziploc. If you're not recording it. If you're recording it, you would know which bolt goes where, which plug gets connected where. The best practice is get yourself a marker. Any color marker or Sharpie you can use. One thing you could do is you have two options to do this job. You can get a timing tool, which I'm going to share the link in the description for you. And what that tool does is releases the timing tension for you without removing the front cover, so you can take out the cams. And with this tool, it will allow you to over here you only need the tool to push the tensioner back. And the time chain guide back, so you can have slack here. On this side, the tool has a little hook that will go down and lift on the timing chain tensioner lock while inserting the tension tool to push the tensioner back, so you can have the enough tension in the chain. You can also mark the chain and the sprocket on both sides, so when you go to install it, make sure the chain and the sprocket are connected in the same point. These are the things that you do need to pay attention to before you start this job. And if you have never done the timing service before or timing job before, and this is your own vehicle, this is not something you want to take on by yourself. Have somebody that has little knowledge of cars, because this can turn very easily into a more work. I wouldn't say nightmare, be more work, where if you slip the timing, now you would have to remove the front cover, all the accessories and everything out, and get down to the timing covers and marks and line everything back up, which will add more work for you and more tools and more time, so be careful and follow along if you could. I'll try to show you the overview what I can. I'm not going to show in detail. This is very frustrating work, so I'll see what I can explain. If there's any important factors I will have to show you, I will show you. All right, let's get started. Start by opening 10 millimeter here, 10 here, 10 here. Take 8 millimeter, open this, unplug your sensor here. Now just hose left right here. To disconnect this, you're going to push this in and pull the hose out like that. Now let's see if the intake is released. Yes, here you go. This box is connected with 1, 2, and 3 push-ons. You're just going to pull it up. There you go. After you get the battery out, you're going to need to open 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts here, and that's just to remove this tray. And then you have to remove these bolts here. And next we're going to work on the fuse box. For the next step, you're going to need to remove the fuse box and the bottom cover of it. Get it out of there. There are 3 bolts down here. 2 10mm, 1 8mm. Then we're going to get to those mounting bolts to get this cover out. Now those of you that's working on this Rubicon the first time, or Jeep Wranglers with the auto start system, you need to realize this has 2 batteries. So once you remove all the bolts for this, there's a cover down here. You're going to need to pop that cover out to get access to your secondary battery. You have to disconnect this battery before you start any work. What I normally do is I unplug this from the positive here so I don't short anything out and tape it. Even though you do this, your fuse box is still live, so you will have to be very careful until you unplug this battery. Right underneath this, there's another cover. You pick it up, slide it out, and get access to that battery. Disconnect both terminals. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and remove the battery out of the way and take this cover out. I'd rather not disconnect any of the electrical plugs, just because connecting them back could be a headache. I don't like to disconnect them. So what I do instead is just disconnect all the plastics around it. If you want to take this tray out, you will have to remove the bottom box that holds the battery in place. Like this guy that goes at the bottom of the tray, and it held by 3 bolts from the bottom. You have to, from right here, you got to take out the fender liner halfway, get to those 3 bolts, take the tray out. Then the large tray, you're just going to basically take and flip and out. It will come out, gives you enough room to work around your valve cover, and nothing is in your way. Next, I'm just going to disconnect the all the vacuum lines and then the engine coolant lines that are in the way. Well, there's one way you could do it. Either disconnect those 2 and this one and then flip them forward out of your way, or you can disconnect them all together and take them out, whichever one works best for you. We need to remove this bracket, 2 10mm here, 1 up front. Take the bracket out. Then get to the coils and wiring, because that needs to be out of the way. Then we'll go to the 8mm on the intake manifold. Take that out of the way. There's a bracket on the other side. There's a bracket up front. You see that 10mm? That needs to be removed. To get the intake manifold out, we're going to need to disconnect the E-plugs here, EGR plugs here, vacuum line on top, plug all the way back here, and that's it. Let's take this bracket out. There you go. Now we're going to free the coolant. There we go, they're free. Let's disconnect the solenoid. I think it's the evap solenoid. We could do this. Just slip on like that. Unplug it. Our point is to get it out of our way. On this side, just remove the EGR valve. There's 10mm bolts for the bracket. Open those 2 10mm and remove the reservoir and disconnect the reservoir cables, so reservoir hoses, and get them out of the way completely so you can get the reservoir out. You don't want any plastic nipples in your way that can easily break, so you gotta watch out for this one. This was part of the reservoir tank that I took out. Make sure you don't leave this hose connected, otherwise under pressure it will break. Now the electrical wiring right here, you're going to disconnect the sensor, lift it out of the way. There is a mounting plate bracket right here that we need to disconnect for the intake manifold. Next, you're going to need a 532 and the same bracket that you took out the bolt from. There is a star head. You're going to open that stud so you don't have to pry the bracket out. once you do get the stud out, you can pull that stud out by hand just enough. Gives you access. Next, you're gonna need to pull the EGR out, and the intake manifold, you can see, is free. If you don't want to touch the EGR, you could basically lift the intake manifold up from this side, like that. And the EGR, it takes two hands to get the EGR tube out, but then the intake manifold is free. Here we go. So what we did was we took these studs out. Instead of trying to deal with the bottom bracket, we took the studs out completely. We do have to remove this bracket, otherwise we can't take the valve cover off, but at least I don't have to worry about that right now and deal with it when time comes. After you get this bracket right here loose, it's like this here. It's connected like this. There's a bolt at the bottom. The bottom bolt for that is this here, star head. So you're gonna need to open that right next to the AC lines. The bracket comes off. Next, you're gonna disconnect both sensors, ignition coils, and the sensor back there, and then remove all the ignition coils, take the valve cover out. So the valve cover has 10mm bolts along the line. You can see them, and you should be able to get to it. Before I do any more work, I'm going to block off all these intake ports and then start working on this side, which will be removing the coolant lines and getting them out of my way. So you see this bracket is already free. I'm not going to disconnect it any further.